No, I'm forgetting. And our last reader of the night is Charisse Cecil, one of my favorites.
So I'll read first, and then I'll say which pieces inspire me. Can everyone hear me? Okay. The title of this piece is Dolor by Numbers. Now serving C104 at Windows 7. C104 to Windows 7, please. The automated lady beckons the next customer to my window for the third time. My fingers drum impatiently on the Formica countertop as I watch a middle-aged Indonesian man take tentative steps toward me. Step lively, sir, I say under my breath. I need to get you in and out in 6 minutes or less. The Q-matic is rolling. I give him my welcome to the DMV. I'll try to make this as painless as possible for both of us, smile, and say, good morning, how may I help you today? I need the driver's license. No, the ID, he says, while pushing a short stack of documents toward me. I glance at the application first. Johannes Sakarto. He alternately gazes at me and the papers. I give him my, don't worry, it's almost over smile, which he returns with something between a closed-mouth smile and a slightly pained grimace. After 2 years as a DMV customer service representative, I recognize that look. It's the nervous, forced politeness reserved for people in power. In reality, I'm a part-time college student at George Mason and a P14 customer service clerk. My colleagues and I joke that the P stands for peon. I have no power, real or perceived. I'm just a processor, like a machine. To me, Mr. Sakarto is a number. With valid documentation, he'll receive an ID from the Commonwealth of Virginia. To Mr. Sakarto, I'm the gatekeeper who can legitimize his residency with a pen stroke and a keystroke. I'm surprised to see a maroon Ecuadorian passport with Mr. Sakarto's papers. I was expecting the green cover of an Indonesian passport. I'm certain that he's Indonesian, not Spanish. I pride myself on identifying ethnicities. I can tell the differences between Thai, Cambodian, Japanese, and Korean features. I'm not that American who thinks all Asians look alike. It's a notion I've heard both black and white people say about each other all my life, and it aggravates me. I often correct my relatives who use terms like Arab with a long A for anyone that appears to be a Muslim, and Mexican as a catch-all for Hispanics and Latinos. I know how to classify people, but not in an anthropological, where do you fit in on the ethnographic totem pole way. It's more of an, I respect your difference and diversity and celebrate your splendid historical and cultural otherness thing. I know that people migrate all over the world, and surely there's a story behind this Indonesian man with the Ecuadorian passport. But I only have 6 minutes or less to get him in and out of queue, so there's no time for epic odysseys today. ¿Se habla español? I ask Mr. Sakarto. When he nods and says, sí, some, I ask, ¿de dónde es usted? ¿De Ecuador or de Indonesia? Indonesia, he says, pero vivía en Indonesia porque soy cristiano. Ah, I say, guessing that he sought asylum from religious persecution by moving to Ecuador. Yo también, I tell him. Soy cristiano también. I'm a Christian too. There. He sighs, smiling, as his shoulders slightly droop and the wrinkles around his eyes deepen. Now he's at ease. Now we have something in common. But I don't have to leave my country to praise Jesus. His passport checks out, as does his I-94 arrival record. He's also armed with an I-766 employment authorization and a bill from Dominion Power verifying his address. Almost done, Mr. Sakarto, I assure him, and he nods. Uh-oh. I look at Mr. Sakarto's social security card. It's clearly a fake. It's too lightweight and smooth in my hand. The blue-tinted marble background is too vibrant. I run my fingers across the name and number printed on the card. The lettering should be raised, but it's flat. Did someone print this on a business card template with an inkjet printer? Bootleg. Un momento, I tell him. Now I have to confiscate this false card and take all of his documents to my supervisor. As I walk away from the desk toward the back office, I see a small group of Indonesians stand up in the waiting area. A woman walks towards Mr. Sakarto. I recognize her. I don't know her name, but in my head I call her Hustle Girl because I think she makes a business of helping/hustling her people. She brings in a group daily to get IDs or learner's permits. These new immigrants probably pay her a fee for facilitating this process. It must be how she makes her living because she's inside this DMV more than I am each day. After all, I'm a part-timer, a peon 14. Doris, my supervisor, reviews all the items and confirms what I thought. This social is definitely fake, she growls. Doris has been a manager for nearly 20 years. She smokes a pack of Marlboros a day despite beating throat cancer twice already. Her skin is gray and wrinkled beyond her 52 years, and her hair is a frizzy brownish-gray frame around her face. Doris reminds me of Patty and Selma, Bart Simpson's chain-smoking DMV agent aunts. I stifle a chuckle at life, imitating art, imitating life. We have to confiscate it, she says, and shrugs and follows me out to my window. Hustle Girl scurries away as we approach, but she plants herself close enough to stay within earshot. Mr. Sicardo, I'm sorry, but I have to take this document, I say with an apologetic frown. No, he says, no, I just need the ID. I'm sorry, Mr. Sicardo, but I can't give you an ID, and I have to keep this card. I hand him back the rest of his documents. He shakes his head, holds out his hand, and says, I need my card. Yo lo necesito. Lo siento, I say. I'm sorry, but I can't give it back to you. He looks around, and Hustle Girl scurries up to the window. My supervisor steps closer, leans in, and it's obvious that this situation is over our heads, Mr. Sicardo's and mine. Our superiors have stepped in, and there's nothing more for either of us to say. Doris tells him that his Social Security card is fake, that we'll be reporting it to the Social Security Administration as federal laws require, and to have a nice day. Doris's have a nice day is equivalent to kick rocks. Mr. Sicardo gives me one last disappointed glance over his shoulder as he walked out of the service center with the Indonesian delegation. Looks like no one else in the Hustle Girls group is getting an ID or permit today. I feel bad for Mr. Sicardo, a little guilty too, like I conspired with the system to kill this man's dreams. Then I decide to feel indignant instead. It's not my fault. Blame that lady who took your money and gave you a fake document, I think to myself, feeling righteous again. I turn and say to Doris, he didn't even need to present a Social Security card to get an ID in the first place. I know, she says, foreigners. Now, hit next. We need to beat last week's numbers. I sigh and hit the next button. Now serving C105 at window number 7.